All right, statement of adequate notice. Under the Sunshine Law, adequate notice in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act was provided on January 16th, 2025 of this meeting's date, time, and location. The agenda was mailed to the Cranberry Press and Home News Tribune, posted on the Township Bulletin Board, mailed to those requesting personal notice, and filed with the municipal clerk. Roll call, please. Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Ms. El-Badawi?
Here.
Mr. Giddings?
Here.
Ms. Knierim is not here. Mr. Mildenberg?
Here.
Mr. Muselli?
Here.
Mr. Polk? Mr. Stewart is not here, and Mr. Whitman.
Here.
Thank you.
Very
We have a
good.
quorum.
And we have a roll call. First item on the agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes from May 1st. And there wasn't really much that went on that night other than a very quick meeting, but does anybody have any additions or comments for those minutes? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
A motion.
Can I have a second, please? Here, call the roll.
Mhm. All right, roll call for the May 1st, 2025 minutes. Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. El-Badawi?
Yes.
Mr. Mildenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Muselli?
Yes.
Mr. Polk?
Yes.
And Mr. Whitman.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passed.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment for items not on the agenda. So I'm going to limit this to 30 minutes. So, and we're going to kind of set a timer for people to talk. So we've been doing 3 minutes. So So when you come up, please state your name and address for the record, please. Hold on one second. Okay, please.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna stay. I pushed the right one, so it's red, now it's on. Okay, thank you all. My name is Ann Studholm. I'm an attorney with Post Pollock up in Roseland. I live at 409 South Main Street in Hightstown. I'm here on behalf of Onyx Realty LLC. They're the contract purchaser of a tract on George Davison Road. I would prefer at this point not to say the exact lot and block number because it is owned by a private individual. At some point, obviously, that will go into the record, and I think you guys know roughly where this parcel is anyway. My understanding is, and driving in here, I saw all the Save Andy's Farm signs, that Cranberry Committee feels constrained to attempt to take a historic 175-year-old farm that's been in the family for many, many, many generations and that is not available for affordable housing, that the owner doesn't want to sell. As an affordable housing attorney, I think that's a real uphill fight. And my client's land is available. They actually already proposed it for affordable housing because they were unaware, and the current owners were unaware, of an agricultural easement deed that was probably the result of cluster development. So it seems to me at the moment, and this has just been going on for the past 4 or 5 days to get all this together, so hopefully everything will keep on smoothly like this, that Cranberry controls the ability to allow my client's land to be developed for whatever type of affordable housing makes sense. The committee was apparently looking, and I understand your planner and your lawyer are not the committee's planner and lawyer, but they were looking at the 21-acre Henry Farm to satisfy the entire obligation. It's 250 plus or minus credits, not necessarily that many units, on 21 acres. This is a 47-acre parcel. And because it's in a 100 zoning anyway, it could probably develop with an inclusionary, if part of it were to be family affordable housing and part of it were to be age-restricted market rate housing, it wouldn't necessarily have to be terribly dense. I think it could be much, much better planning. It has been proposed. Kevin Van Heis, who's your affordable housing lawyer, wrote a letter saying, unfortunately, it's in agricultural covenant. And that's the first time either the current owner or my client, the contract purchaser, knew about that. So we've been looking into see why twice was this missed in the chain of title. It appears that it was just given by essentially the prior developer, the guy who got the cluster housing, to himself for $1. And it doesn't look, there wouldn't have really been any non-agricultural development rights to sell because it was A100. You could put 4 houses there. It doesn't look as if there's, as if there's a third party. So what I'd like to do, I just wanted to let you guys know that, because I know tonight in executive session, you're probably going to be discussing the Henry Farm. I think the Henry Farm will never yield affordable housing. I say that as someone who's worked on affordable housing for 30 years. This site certainly could. It's right near a bus line, among other things. And I think that Cranberry is the only even arguably interested party in this conservation easement. Doesn't look like there's anybody else there. I wanted to put that on the record. I would prefer not to say the exact block. There is a record of it. Obviously, Mr. Van Heist cites it in his letter of May 29th. If you want me to, I'll read that section of the letter, but I prefer not to. Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone.
Anybody else would like to come up and say comments that are not on the agenda? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comments section of the agenda and move on to the first item that we'll be discussing tonight, amended resolution. Item number PB 321-19, American Outdoor Advertising LLC.
Want me to speak to this?
Yes, please.
Okay. After you all passed the resolution approving this application, a letter came from the applicant's attorney. They got an approval from DOT moving the approval by 2 feet. So they wanted to amend the resolution to, instead of 98 feet from Brickyard Road, to 100 feet. So I don't believe Dave or Andy have any problem with that. So I did a resolution to, no issues? Okay. So I don't know if the board has any issues, but it's an outside agency approval. So I did a resolution, agreeing to amend that resolution, and then, I put the change in Exhibit A.
Yeah, and I think we said that because they said they did have to go to the DOT
Yes.
to get, to present their final thing. And if this is what the DOT said, move it 2 feet. I'm okay with it. So does anybody else have any comments or questions or anything? All right.
And the only thing is that the people that, were here and voted on the resolution should be the people that vote on this one. So, yeah.
We have that,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the amended PB 321-19, American Outdoor Advertising
There's
LLC?
only 3 of you that can do it.
Who are the 3?
You, Aman, and John.
So I move.
Okay.
I need a second.
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 Okay.
Okay, roll call, please. Ms. El-Badawi,
Yes.
Mr. Museli,
Yes.
and Mr. Whitman.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passed.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is consistency review, Prairie Township ordinance number 052707. An ordinance, excuse me, ordinance amending and supplementing the provisions pertaining to community residences for developmentally disabled and community shelters for the victims of domestic violence contained in Article 3 of Chapter 150 entitled Land Development of the Code of Cranberry.
I'll speak to this one too. This actually originated with the planning board last year. I think Cranberry Housing Associates came in and they wanted to put in a group home. But we realized in looking through the town's ordinances that we weren't in sync anymore with the state's law regarding what a community residence is for people with developmental disabilities. So this has just been revised to meet state law. It just pretty much mirrors it at this point. So it's an ordinance amendment, and we would just have to find it consistent with our master plan now that it's back to us. So.
Any comments or questions from members of the board on this? I do remember that when it came in last year, there was a cleaning up of it. So, does anybody have any issues or nothing? Okay,
So somebody can move to just find this consistent with the master plan, or
Do we
it could
need-
not
do-
inconsistent with the
do
master
we,
plan.
do we?
Okay, we
do
like that word
just-
better.
Do we just need that, or
Yeah,
do
that's all
we,
you have to do.
we don't have to have a vote on it, or?
Yeah, you have a
Oh,
vote. So
sorry.
you could, all right, the better way, someone would make a motion to find this
All right.
not inconsistent with the master plan. And then you could vote and we'll send a summary to the
Not consistent, or?
not inconsistent.
Not inconsistent?
Yes.
There's no
Not
inconsistencies.
inconsistent.
Okay. All right, I would like to have a motion to approve this, that it's not inconsistent with our master plan.
So moved.
Can I have a second, please? Yeah, that's fine. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Very good.
All right, roll call. Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Elbadawi?
Yes.
Mr. Giddings?
Yes.
Mr. Mildenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Muselli?
Yes.
Mr. Polk?
Yes.
And Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Motion
you,
passed.
everybody. All right, next item. This will take probably a little bit more time. We're going to hear a review of the amendments to the Cranberry Township Master Plan pertaining to the historic preservation element. And this is in reference to, we had heard an initial review of this. I think it was, when was that? Was it last year, right? It was last year.
It's a few times.
Yeah, it's been a few times, but it was last year.
Last year most recently, but we did speak about it at the last
Meeting,
meeting that
correct.
Evelyn was at, regarding the most recent recommendations.
Right. And I reread it, and I think everybody that worked on that did a really good job to incorporate our concerns and address, how we look at things, especially in the area. If somebody who doesn't have a historic house is now in the historic zone, how they can address, let's say, working on their house. They don't have to have, the Pella individual divided light window. They can just go with an Anderson window with grills in it, to kind of make it look as, am I right? That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Just jump in because we need to just make this technically
Right.
conform. Do you swear that the testimony that you're
Oh, I'm
giving
sorry.
this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. And we don't have, and there's any professionals? No, you don't intend to testify. We have no public here, so, okay,
Sorry.
carry on.
Okay. Now that you're legal.
Yes, so there were a bunch of recommendations that date back certainly to the 2019 master plan reexamination, but even way before that, specifically regarding the 200-foot buffer area that exists around the Cranberry Village Historic District. And there was a move, I think, in the 2019 reexam to remove it altogether. And that was the first time we came here was with an amendment that said that, remove it. And I think then the HPC grew concerned, well, maybe we don't want to, take every property that's in there and now they don't have HPC review. Like maybe there's some that we would like to continue to have HPC review. So then we came last summer with, a preliminary look at that. And I think the board's feedback was, well, what's the rationale? Why did you include some? Why didn't you include others? And is it fair that people who maybe bought, have a house that was built in 1990 have to go for the same sort of review as somebody whose house was built in 1890. And so there are a couple of things that this amendment does, or makes the recommendation for the governing body to act, which is it does remove the 200-foot buffer, but it does add some homes to the historic district that were not, some of them are, currently in the buffer area, some are not, but there's also the recommendation that there be a difference between contributing historic structures and non-contributing historic structures. And so many of those that were neither in the buffer area or the historic district, which are now going to be, are considered non-contributing. So the level of review will be much different, much less strict, much less stringent than someone who's the owner of a historic property. So I think the HBC sort of crafted these recommendations, which are embodied in the amendment, in specifically to address the concerns raised by the board last fall. So that's where we are.
And again, it was also raised by people who had non-conforming, or what's the, non-contributing, excuse me, non-contributing homes in the historic district, because then, yeah, if they wanted to do some work on their house, on the outside, it doesn't matter what you do inside, but especially on the outside, there was concerns that, they're going to have to jump through hoops to do everything. So I think that was addressed in here. It looks like it was.
Yes, and if they do, there's going to be a different sort of section of the ordinance regarding design guidelines that'll apply to, it'll be different, sort of certain level standard for the non-contributing and a different level for the contributing. And then I think the HPC took a careful look, because as you guys, the board is well aware, there were neighborhoods, particularly to the west of the Village Historic District, like Wynwood Drive, areas that were sort of remote from the historic district, who were still, within that buffer area and had to come, technically before HPC for any improvements. And so I think the standard that HPC took to which properties to include and which to sort of say, okay, you're out of the buffer and we're not going to put you in the district, is what impact they had on the historic contributing properties in the historic district. And if there was a sense, I think that if something were to happen on, let's say, that house in 1990, and it could potentially adversely impact the rest of the historic district, that that probably was added into the historic district as a non-contributing building. Sorry, that was a lot of.
No, it's better. We've got to get the big picture here.
Yeah.
So from a legal standpoint, what do we need to do to move this along?
Make a motion to,
No, first I'm going to have
There should be
comments from the board.
comments. Yeah, I'm sorry. There should be comment from the board members, but once you're ready, then there would be a vote taken to approve this, and then I would do a memorializing resolution for the next meeting. That would go
Okay.
to the township committee.
Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to hear any comments from the board on this. If you have anything.
I have a question.
Yep.
Once this is the new set of guidelines, is there a phasing in of this, or is it just immediate? Will we find that residents suddenly say, hey, I'm not aware of what really is upon me. Do I have a grace period? Can I have a counseling?
That's a really good question. And I think it depends on the way the ordinance is crafted, because sometimes an ordinance at the very end, it'll say this takes effect immediately, and then other times there is a certain grace period. And that may be something that we raise with the HPC, that they might want to do some outreach, in the interim.
And you can amend this with recommendations to the governing body too. So if that turns out to be a recommendation that you want to make, I'll put that in the resolution with respect to an ordinance.
That's a recommendation I would like to make, but I guess I should probably, we have a meeting on Monday and we can, okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So just to understand the process, we vote tonight, there's a resolution the next meeting, and then it goes
To the township to codify as law.
Okay.
So then they'll do an ordinance, which will then
Right.
come back to this board for
It's for consistency
for not
review.
inconsistency.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and if we had any comments on like the standards or anything, that would then set things back, and have to go back to HPC and create the whole process again.
Well, I think not exactly. I mean, because really when it comes to you guys, again, I keep calling you guys, I'm sorry. When it comes
No,
back
that's
to the
fine.
board again, it's really the focus of the review is the consistency. So if there are substantive issues with the ordinance, like the design guidelines, it's probably most appropriate to either really reach out to HPC directly or to bring your comments to the TC when it is up for second reading.
Okay. And that's, because I have minor details on the standards, which is really an HPC recommendation that I think, I don't have any issues with the overall, I think there's some consistency with the past in terms of what's approved, what's not approved, and what some of the standards say. So if I just make those comments directly to HPC, they can decide whether or not they want to include it or not.
I think that's the best way to do it, unless you want to put it in the resolution or.
I mean, do you have them ready already, with your comments, or is it something you're going to be looking at?
I don't have them
Yeah, okay.
worded.
So I
just-
think just being, from the township governing side, so it doesn't have to go through too many, because if you introduce an ordinance, then you put it up for public hearing, and then all of a sudden you have changes, and they have to decide whether they're substantive or not, and then they might have to defeat it and go all over again. So it would be probably better if you came up with your comments beforehand, before the thing is written. And then, so I would say, if the.
Quite honestly, I'd rather just give them to HPC and let them
Yeah.
do what they think is appropriate or not.
Yeah.
I don't want to slow this down in any way.
Yeah, no, I would do it first. And
Okay.
then if it looks like it's acceptable to everybody, when it comes time, then it will just get passed.
Yeah,
at that
okay.
One sweep.
So what would be the procedure for that then?
Well,
As an individual, I just assume I will reach out.
No,
to
no, you're a
HPC.
board member. I mean,
Or-
I'd rather, you're part of the board making comments on this thing. So it has to, you're making it not as you're making it as a member of the planning
how
board.
is this
And
been proceeding?
I'm not disagreeing that that's the way it should be done. It's just that there may be, how do we, punt the ball back? Do we punt the ball back to them with your comments or?
I do have I have a suggestion,
Okay,
is that maybe we put in our resolution that any language go before the zoning subcommittee
Okay,
before first reading.
because we've been talking about it anyway.
And so then,
Yes, that's perfect.
that would capture that.
We've been discussing that in reviewing some of the design standards anyway, and my comments could fall right into that. Perfect.
okay. So how do I craft this motion here?
Well, you can request a motion, approving the historic amendment to the historic preservation element of the master plan. And then someone can second that, and take a vote, and then I'll do a resolution for next meeting.
Okay, that sound appropriate? And then we could work amongst comments in there too about if we want like a 3-minute grace period or, 2 months or whatever.
Would you like me to include that the board recommends that there be a grace period incorporated into the ordinance?
I think
sort of?
it's not, most ordinances do take effect. Immediately,
Yeah.
but I think in this case, and that could be up to the township. I would
Right.
give a month or something like that. I wouldn't, say 4 or 5 months, I would give a month,
And maybe it's enough time for the board, for the HPC to provide some sort of outreach or materials to help homeowners translate.
Well, it could be posted on the website
Yeah.
and things like that where people could,
So,
download.
so maybe HPC could share what they feel a time frame might be realistic for some of that outreach as well?
Yes,
Is
that's a good
Would
idea.
that make, okay, thank you.
Will outreach be to the people who are directly affected or added, as opposed to just putting it on the website?
Well, I think
Wondering if they'll ever come across it.
it's a number of both. I think for somebody, and Danny can speak to this from a real estate standpoint, if somebody wants to come into the town, they want to buy in a historic zone, then there's something they could see. And then they could be shown. So it's just not for people in the town. It could be people that are outside the town
Right,
looking
I
to come in.
guess Mine was more of a end the website, notify directly, and you can put whatever you want on the website, but just putting it up on the town website isn't necessarily the best way to get hold of residents who don't know that an ordinance is going to be passed that includes their home.
They will be noticed.
Okay,
Because it's they're within, it's a change to their,
okay,
Yes,
that's all.
yeah. so they'll get a notice.
Okay.
So just to piggyback on what you were saying, so if the residents who are being affected are going to be noticed, would the real estate agents in town also be noticed? Because they are in effect, it pertains to their job?
No.
Okay, all right. It'll be up to them to get that information from the appropriate channels. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think I got this. Put my glasses on. Okay, so regarding a resolution. I'd like to have a resolution to approve the Cranberry Township Master Plan pertaining to the historic preservation element that was given to us tonight.
Approval of this, right?
I'm
Motion to
requesting an
approve.
approval for this
And then I'll
tonight.
prepare a resolution.
So can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Can I have a second, please?
Second?
All right, roll call for the master plan historic preservation element amendment. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Albadawi,
Yes.
Mr. Giddings,
Yes.
Mr. Mildenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Muselli,
Yes.
Mr. Polk,
Yes.
and Mr. Whitman.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passed.
And again, it'll be those comments that you had suggested and suggested with it in the timeframe.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the old and new business, the zoning committee. Can anybody speak to that? Because the zoning committee, the review on
Yes, do you want to? Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. Okay, well,
Kevin, we'll be starting real shortly after this.
yeah, this will be,
Yes.
this will be quick.
You got enough time.
So the first thing that the mayor tasked us with in the zoning committee was to take a look at the checklist. And Gina's been great about helping us out with it. We made a whole bunch of revisions to the checklist. We added an additional column for a single-family residence / variance. So it's much simpler for those kind of people that come in. They don't have to go through environmental reports and all of those other things. And then we also sort of moved around various items, and we were able to create areas of like influence where this is administrative, and then this is engineering, and this is design, that kind of thing. And thank God we had an architect on the board that helped. That Bill worked out great with that, and Liz gave us our planning information. We now have what we think is a good working copy. We'll probably go through it one more time of a new checklist, which will help me out tremendously because I'm the one that does the reviews for all the completeness. And oftentimes it's very difficult for an applicant to understand what completeness is here in the planning or zoning board. And so I'm hoping that this will educate both the attorneys and the engineers and the planners that come into us so that we have a better application, because I know some of the board members have been complaining that maybe the applications aren't ready yet, right? I think, Chairman, you said that once. And so we're trying to focus on that and try to create better applications so when they come in here, there's more information.
So I have two, and please feel free to jump in with other questions too. I have two quick questions. In your estimate, how much time do you think this will save both the applicant and us in reviewing this information? Do you think it'll be a time saver in the end?
I think if it's a 3-meeting application, it'll become a 2-meeting application.
That's
That type of thing.
That's
If it's a-
significant.
If it's a 2-meeting application, it'll become a 1. If it's a 20-meeting application, it'll become a 10. That was
Still,
kind of,
it's better
that was
than-
kind of a joke, but we've had them, and I've had them in my life.
Yes, no.
Okay, and next, you have another
And
question?
geez, I lost my train of thought. The second thing is, for us internally here, it'll be quicker for us to review everything then too, correct? And is that the thought process too?
Yeah, it's
We
the
can
idea
go-
that is everything will be ready for you to look at, and that you won't have to quiz the applicants quite as much as you do now.
You mean grill them?
Yeah, I mean, especially on some of the weird, strange applications that contain unusual mechanical equipment or, things that aren't a generator, but maybe there's something else, but do similar things. And, a lot of it has to do with rooftop stuff and mechanical equipment that we want to try to make sure they really show it.
Yeah, because again, we don't want to be building the plane as we're flying it down the runway here. We've seen too many times. You get an applicant that comes in, it's got it down, presents, they got the right experts, they present their case, and they're out of here. And then you got, we're walking through quicksand here, and it's just and it's better for the applicant too, and everybody here. So, good. Do we have an estimate of when this might be finalized?
I think our next meeting, it'll be ready to go to the township committee. I don't know, what you think, Bill?
Yeah, I think the checklist is there. I just don't know about the design standards.
Well, I haven't even talked about that, but that's the
Yeah.
next thing.
There are additional, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So no, there are additional work that we're undertaking now having to do with the design standards, which I think ultimately has the same objective or goal, which is to get applications when they eventually come to the board, that they are more what the board is looking for. And make sure that the design guidelines are adequate and that they make sense and, reasonable.
Okay.
So that's separate to the checklist. And so the checklist will be ready, but the design standards will not. So we will get this in the chunks as they are ready. Okay, perfect.
They would be two separate ordinances for the town council anyway, so in different locations, so yeah, I would think they'd be at two different times.
Does anybody have any questions or comments on this?
Do we have anything in the checklist that will specifically address like the accessory buildings and the accessory items? Because I feel like we get really tripped up on that.
Yes, on accessory items. If you're talking about residential accessory buildings, no.
No, not residential.
That's kind of simple stuff. But if you're on a site and you have a factory here, and then you got a little factory here, or you got maybe
Trailer.
some kind of trailer stuff or shelter, things like that, that's what we're looking to try to do, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I know we've talked about, we've gone through some of these horrible applications and they come back and forth, like why didn't they go to the DRC first? Is there any place on the checklist or when you're starting to make an application that we let people know that that's available? Because I think that, some of the problems could be stopped before we even start, like get this
Yeah,
checklist together.
It's not on the checklist, I don't think, Gina, but
It's
it might be in the application.
It's at like the very top of the checklist, and I bring it up to them too, but usually.
You do, okay. It's not a checklist
Yeah,
item.
Gina
Yeah.
and Robin before, I've always brought up to the applicant that it might behoove you to go to the DRC and just talk this out. And a lot of times they say, well, we're going to throw the dice and see what we do with the
Exactly.
board. And a lot of times we're throwing the dice right back at them. So then, they waste their time anyway. So hopefully, this checklist and continued pushing to get them to come to a DRC meeting will work out. Any other comments or questions? Okay, good. That's actually very good news. At this point in time, do you have a resolution?
I have it.
She has it, okay.
So I'm guessing it's motion, roll call, and then read it. Okay, so do we have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
A second.
All right, roll call to go into closed session. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Elbadawi,
Yes.
Mr. Giddings,
Yes.
Mr. Mildenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Muselli,
Yes.
Mr. Polk,
Yes.
and Mr. Whitman.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So now I have to read this. Okay. Resolution Open Public Meetings Act - Executive Session, whereas NJS 2:4-12 Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Board of the Township of Cranberry, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey as follows. 1, the public shall be excluded from discussion of the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Confidential advice of counsel regarding litigation - affordable housing. It is anticipated at this time that the above matter will be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately.